Welcome to Table Bible Studies with Den and Ben. Table Bible Studies are posted every Thursday. Dennis and Benedicta are studying the Apostle Paul. We resume our study in Acts 23, where we find Paul in the custody of the Roman guard.
The Jews just hate Paul. You know, when you're forceful and strong in your personality and in your beliefs and in your proclamations, some people are going to appreciate you, but some people are going to just hate you. You know, there are times where people will disagree with us, but they'll still like us. You know, it's like, well, I don't believe what he's saying, but he's a nice guy. And there are other times where they just don't like us at all. They don't just disagree with us. They may hate us. That was the case here. They didn't just disagree with Paul. Well, Paul, I think you're wrong about this Jesus stuff. They didn't just disagree. They hated him. And when you hate someone, killing is not so far away. And so they were ready to kill him. And there was a group of them that decided, we're going to take an oath before God, which in the Jewish mind was about the most serious thing you could do. When you take an oath before God, I vow before Yahweh, the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that I will do such and such. That's like pretty serious stuff, right?
Yeah, it's serious.
They took an oath. I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to drink until Paul is dead. We're going to kill him.
Okay.
And we vow before God, I'll not take another bite of bread, another bite of meat, another vegetable. I'll never even drink a glass of water until Paul is dead. And there was a bunch of them. There's like over 40 of them took this vow. Paul's going to have to die, and we're going to be the ones to do it. They're not going to wait for God to give him cancer or some kind of an issue like that. They're just going to go out and kill him. So the vow is done.
Okay.
Now, they come up with a plan. We'll ask the commander to send him to us once again. And as he's on his journey from where he's being kept as a prisoner to stand before the Jews, we'll wait for him. We'll ambush them. If we have to kill some of the soldiers, we'll do that, because they figured they'd just accompany him with a couple of soldiers. And they had like over 40. So, and we'll kill him. And until he's dead, no food, no drink. Pretty serious stuff. Pretty serious hatred, right?
Yeah, that is like, a hatred in the highest level. If somebody can go to, an extent to make sure that, you're dead while you didn't do anything evil to them, 40 of them, you can't be going from from one person to another person doing them wrong. It's just that you are proclaiming the gospel, which is good news, to save their lives from, eternal hell and the condemnation, and now they want you dead. That is serious, that kind of hatred. No eating, no food, no drinks. That's like fasting, hunger strike. Let's go on hunger strike. And then, until we, achieve our aim concerning him, we're not going to eat you. I'll be like, okay, God is like, not relenting too. God is like, when somebody's like, over my dead body, will I see you live? Or will I see you do this? Or will I see you succeed? It's the same thing. We'd be like, okay, God is like watching you, be like, why would you do such a thing?
But God wasn't finished with Paul. And I've often thought, we are immortal, that is incapable of dying, until God is finished with us. Then we're very mortal. But until the Lord Jesus has finished with our life, there's nobody going to touch us. So Jesus isn't finished with Paul. And while these guys are planning this murderous scheme to kill Paul and ask the commander to let him come and spend some time with them once again, wanting to ask him some more questions, while that's going on, there's some talk going on. I mean, you've got quite a few men, and word got out somehow. Do you know these guys? They've made a vow they won't eat or drink until they've killed Paul.
It's something, all right.
We don't know hardly anything about Paul's family. His mama. What about Paul's mama? We never hear about Mama Paul. His brothers and sisters, we don't hear. But here we're going to hear about one of his relatives, his nephew. His nephew overhears some guys talking about the plan to kill Paul.
Okay, now.
Jesus made it possible. He was a young man, this nephew, was not an old guy. made it possible somehow for him to be close enough by a couple people who were talking about this murder scheme. He heard the whole story. And he went to Paul. He said, they're planning to kill you. They're going to ask the commander to let you go spend some more time while they question you, and they're going to kill you before you ever get there.
Yeah.
Paul calls the commander and tells someone to tell the commander, this young man has something to say to you.
Yeah.
So he does. The commander says, well, what do you need to tell me? And so we pick it up. This is verse 20. He says, the Jews have agreed to ask that you bring Paul down to the council tomorrow as though they were going to inquire more fully about him. They want some more facts.
Yeah.
But he says in verse 21, again, this is just a young man, so it's kind of a gutsy thing to do, but he loved his Uncle Paul.
Yeah.
He says, do not yield to them, for more than 40 of them lie in wait for him, men who have bound themselves by an oath that they will neither eat nor drink until they have killed him, and now they're ready, waiting for the promise from you. So the commander is kind of shocked. He says, all right, he tells the nephew of Paul, he says, don't let anybody know you've told me. He wants to do what he's going to do without the word getting out that he even knows what's going on.
Yeah.
So listen to what it says in verse 23. He called for 2 centurions. A centurion is a captain of 100 people, 100 soldiers. So 2 of them means you got 200 soldiers.
Yeah.
But he didn't stop there. He said, prepare 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, and 200 spearmen to go to Caesarea at the 3rd hour of the night. Now, that's the middle of the night. So he's calling them. They've got a group of almost 500 soldiers, some on horses, some on foot, some with spears, some with swords. Almost 500 soldiers to escort Paul away from the danger and take him elsewhere.
God works in mysterious ways, eh?
Yeah, Jesus was like, my boy is not going to die just yet. So you Jews can plan all you want, but he's going to live. And he had an escort of almost 500 men, armed, trained, tough Roman soldiers to make sure he got where he needed to go.
You see, when, people are gathering themselves and planning evil with the, evil and devilish spirit from the devil, God himself, is planning on how to rescue you from their hands or how to secure you. Right. So that you will not, you will not fall into their trap. And at the same time, that was like a miracle for him. For these people to go and organize this much people just to get him out of the, these people that have planned to destroy him, is mind-blowing, all right? Yeah. Like, that is like, God help me.
Well, can you imagine that group? They say, okay, the commander is going to take Paul, or maybe they never even realized it. But if they did find out there was like 500 soldiers, what a depressing thing that would be. We've got our group of 40. We thought we were pretty tough, but 500 soldiers?
Yeah.
And one other thought is the commander that arranged all this, he wasn't a praying, fasting, godly man.
Okay.
He was just a Roman soldier. But he was being used in the hands of God to make sure Paul made it to Rome. God's will is Paul is going to Rome. He's going to testify of me there in Rome, and there's nobody going to stop him. So that commander is just, the Bible says the heart of a king is in the hand of the Lord. He directs it like a watercourse, like a river, wherever he pleases. That commander's heart was in God's hands. He made sure he found out what was going on. He made sure he got plenty of support for Paul and sent him off in the middle of the night. And Paul did not die. And I just wonder how long those men kept their vow. Remember, they said, we're not going to eat or drink until we've killed Paul. Well, they didn't kill Paul. Did they keep that vow for a week, for 2 weeks, for a month? Or did they just die? I suspect
maybe they broke it after one week.
I think they broke it pretty fast when they realized it wasn't going to work. You know, it was their effort, but it wasn't a successful effort by any means.
But we thank God for family. Yeah. In everything, no matter how...
It was family. It was a nephew.
Yeah, it was a nephew. No matter how much you fight with your family, when he or she hears a plot against you, they're not going to sit and watch others come and kill a member of their family.
Right.
And that boy did what he was supposed to do and report.
Yeah. Well, you're right. It's one of the beauties of family that even though because you live together or you see each other a lot,
or you are fighting every day.
There's bound to be some quarrels and some disagreements.
Yeah.
But it lets someone from the outside come against one of the family members, and everybody suddenly comes together. It's like, oh, no, not my brother, not my uncle, not my cousin. A family works together and fights together. I think that's beautiful. I think, God made it that way, that people would, men and women would grow to adulthood. They would get married. They would have children. There'd be brothers and sisters and cousins and nephews and uncles and aunts. And they stand as one unit when there's opposition. And that's, like you say, what happened with Paul.
Yeah.
So he sends Paul to the governor Felix, and they go to a place called Caesarea, a city called Caesarea, and he writes him a letter and lets him know. He kind of exaggerates a little bit. He says, well, I rescued Paul when I learned he was a Roman. Well, that was pretty much a lie. He had to deliver Paul because they were about to kill him, but it wasn't because he thought, oh, they're about to kill a Roman. He didn't even know Paul was Roman. He was about to whip him and beat him until Paul said, oh, can you do this to a Roman? And then he backed off.
Yeah.
So when he says, I rescued him and I learned he was a Roman, no, you didn't quite. But anyway, he sends him to Felix, and Paul goes there. And then Felix has to figure out what to do with him. Verse 34 says, when the governor had read it, he asked what province he was from. And he said, verse 35, I will hear you when your accusers also have come. So he's like, well, let the Jews come up here. And tell me what it is about you that they hate so much. What laws have you broken? So now Paul's going to go through a whole new set of trials and defense and accusation. And that's pretty much what he's going through much of the rest of this book.
Yeah.
So we move into 24. It says, after 5 days, Ananias the high priest came down with the elders and a certain orator named Tertullus. This was basically like a lawyer. He was a good speaker.
Okay.
And they got the best speaker they could get to try to make Paul look bad. And keep in mind, this is the high priest. This is a big deal among the Jews. When you get the high priest coming after you, you know you've touched a real nerve.
You're in trouble.
And you're in trouble. So the high priest comes, all the big shots come to give evidence that Paul is a terrible person doing terrible things and ought to be killed. So it says, verse 2, when he was called on, Tertullus, they call him an orator, but essentially a lawyer. He gives a nice little speech, and he starts out by flattering the governor. He says, seeing that through you we enjoy great peace and prosperity is being brought to this nation by your foresight. In other words, you're doing such a good job, governor. And we're prospering because of you. You've got such wisdom. So we're happy. We accept this eagerly for you to be our judge here in this case. Well, I guess it doesn't hurt to flatter whoever the judge is, right?
Yeah.
So he goes on.
Trying to get favor in his sight.
Trying to get favor. Well, that's, I guess, what lawyers have always tried to do, although in America it doesn't quite work that way.
Oh, it doesn't work.
Well, I've never heard
I was about to copy this.
Well, I've never heard of Perry Mason, saying to the judge, well, since you're such a wonderful judge and a fantastic person and you always do the right thing, I'm happy that you're our judge here. I've never heard that in a Perry Mason movie. Very good man you are. So anyway, but that's what they did here. Now, what I think is particularly interesting in this little trial he's going through is what Tertullus, the lawyer, the orator, accuses Paul of. Because he doesn't get specific. Normally, if you're going to be a prosecuting attorney, you're going to get specific. You're going to give dates and times and exactly what you did and all of that and how you broke the law. You're going to give details, specifics. But listen to what he says about Paul. Verse 5, he says, we found this man a plague. Well, what is that, a plague? I mean, calling him a plague doesn't prove anything. How is he a plague? In what way is he a plague to Israel? What has he done? He just says he's a plague. He's a creator of dissension. So in other words, he's causing a lot of arguments. Well, that's true. He was, but he was doing it at the command of Christ. But again, what are the dissensions? What are the arguments? In what way is this somehow breaking the law? So he's a plague. He causes a lot of arguments among the Jews, and he's a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. Well, that's what they call the Christians, the sect of the Nazarenes. Jesus was from Nazareth. And so that was another title they gave for Christianity in those days, the sect of the Nazarenes. But again, no specifics. It's like he's a ringleader. He's one of the big guys in Christianity. Well, so what? What does that prove? Can you tell us exactly what he's done? He doesn't. No, he's really, by American standards, he's a terrible lawyer. I mean, he was probably a good speaker.
Yeah.
But you got to nail him down. You got to give the date, the time, the specific offense, and really show what he's done. And he doesn't do that at all. I mean, can you imagine that you're in jail for doing something? And if I'm the prosecuting attorney, I come up to the judge and I say, this Benedicta, she's a plague and she ought to be put in jail. He says, what'd she do? Well, she's just a plague. She's just a plague. I tell you, look at that lady. Look at those eyes. Can you believe this lady is a plague? Well, that's ridiculous. So this lawyer didn't do a very good job. But maybe in those days, that's what they did. I don't know.
Yeah.
So he finally gets specific. He says he tried to profane the temple and we seized him. Now, what he's talking about is he brought a Gentile into the temple, but he didn't. So that wasn't even true, and he couldn't prove it. You can't prove a lie. But that's his one specific. And even then, he doesn't get very specific. He just says profane the temple. He doesn't tell how he profaned it or in what manner he profaned it. Really a very poor case. And he says, then the commander came and took him away from us and so forth and so on. And all the other Jews said, yeah, he's a plague. Yeah, he's terrible. Yeah, he deserves to die. That's the best they can do. Pretty lousy offense by the prosecuting attorney. So then the governor says, okay, Paul, your turn. Paul gets up. Now, will he flatter the governor at all? He does a little bit. Not as much as Tertullus. But he says this. He says, inasmuch, this is verse 10, inasmuch as I know you've been for many years a judge of this nation, I do the more cheerfully answer for myself. So he's not nearly such a big flatterer, but he does say, hey, I'm glad to be before you because you've been a judge for a long time, or you've been a leader for a long time. And so I'm happy to defend myself before you. So he's polite. He's respectful. That's kind of what you do say when you're on trial. You know, some people might have such an attitude. They're like, well, who are you to be judging me? I ought to be judging you and, get a real attitude. He didn't do that. He's respectful. I mean, that's just smart. You don't want to unnecessarily offend people. There are some Christians so fiery, they'll mock anybody that doesn't agree with them or that they feel is judging them and so forth. Paul's respectful. And that's a good way to be.
Yeah, it's a good way to be.
So then he says, you can ascertain, in other words, it's easy to prove. I've just been up in Jerusalem for 12 days. They didn't find me in the temple disputing, arguing with anybody. I wasn't inciting a crowd, neither in the synagogue or in the city. This is verse 12. He said, verse 13, nor can they prove the things of which they now accuse me. In other words, there's no proof. Well, that's why you would be vague in your accusations, because there's no proof.
Yeah.
If he had done specific things, if he had killed somebody, if he'd stolen some money or whatever, then you could say, well, here's specifically what he did, but all he did was come to Jerusalem and, worship in the temple and probably shared Christ with a few people, but, nothing worth arresting him for. And he says, but this I will confess, verse 14, according to the way which they call a sect, so I worship the God of my fathers, believing in all things which are written in the law and the prophets. And then he gets down to this issue of the resurrection once again. Remember earlier he had said, I'm being accused because I believe in the resurrection, which Pharisees did believe in, Sadducees did not. He says, I will confess this, I will admit this. I worship God according to the way, which is what they call Christians in those days, the way or Christianity.
Okay.
He says, I believe what the law and the prophets say. I have hope in God, verse 15, that there will be a resurrection of the dead, both of the just and the unjust. There's going to be a resurrection. There's going to be accountability. There's going to be a judgment, essentially, a resurrection. So Paul says, well, I will admit that I believe that.
Yeah.
But you can't arrest someone and throw him in jail or kill him simply because he believes a resurrection. If you did that, you'd have to kill half the Jews because about half of them sided with the Pharisees, probably more than half.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, if the one thing I will admit, I believe in the resurrection. In fact, he says something interesting there. And that is, there'll be a resurrection of the just and the unjust.
Yeah.
A dual resurrection, a dual judgment. The resurrection of the godly Christ followers will be the just, and then the resurrection of the wicked before they're sent into hell.
Will be the unjust.
So Paul will admit that much. And he says, verse 18, they found me neither with mob nor with tumult. I haven't been starting any kind of trouble here. I've been behaving myself, minding my own business. He said, if there had been anything to this, they should be here to object. In other words, where are my accusers? The best they can do is hire this orator to say I'm a plague.
Yeah.
And I'm a ringleader. But that's no kind of a accusation. I accuse you of being a plague, 25 years in jail. Well, that's stupid. Or a ringleader of the Christians. If you're going to do that, you're going to have to arrest every elder, every pastor, every evangelist, every teacher. They're all leaders in the church. So Paul's got a strong case here. Yeah. And they don't quite know what to do with him.
Well, he's directly or indirectly laying his case down in the front of the orator or the judge, like, this is what my offense is, that they arrested me, because the other man was like rambling all over the place. Yeah. Not making any accusation of this is what he did. This is what he didn't do. He was like, okay, let me have a tangible thing that you just you have in hand that he did. Let's just nail him with that. And then he's like, okay, this is what my offense is. I am preaching the gospel, of Jesus Christ and the resurrection. Yeah. And they arrested me. This is it.
Probably most of you know my wife, Benedicta, but few of you know the amazing paths God has led her to bring her to where she is today. Benedicta was orphaned at an early age and lived with an elderly stepmother growing to adolescence. They were so poor, Benedicta had to drop out of school and sell food door to door for them to survive. As a teen, Benedicta got a job as a housemaid, which developed into a nightmare. She was required to cook, clean, wash, take care of the children, and she had to get up at 4 a.m. every day just to get her work started. Worse than that, she was frequently beaten. At around 20, she moved to the huge city of Lagos, where she started her own little business. Sometimes she prospered, but at other times she nearly starved and went days at a time without eating. At one point, she became so sick she passed out in her room and nearly died. She found herself outside of her body, and she was able to see the splendors of heaven until she was sent back with a command to share her story. One day, however, her life changed when an American evangelist came to her community to preach. And of course, that was me. The rest, as they say, is history. Benedicta has shared her life story in a recently published autobiography, and you can get it on Amazon as either an ebook or a paperback. A link to this book on Amazon is in the description.